This is an exciting new study out of Minnesota where a state survey of 9th and 11th graders found that nearly 3% of these students identify as transgender or gender nonconforming in some way, which is news because this is a much larger estimate than we've seen of other population-based studies in the United States, which found somewhere around a percent. There's about 1.4 million adults who identify as transgender, but we really don't have a lot of information about young people. So this is really adding to the literature on what we know about trans and gender nonconforming young people. There's an increasing willingness of people to identify as somewhere under the LGBTQ umbrella, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and other identities like being non-binary or genderqueer, gender fluid. And I also think that it represents an understanding of how gender changes over time, and the labels that we use to describe our own identities changes, particularly for young people. And I think that we've really seen that sort of in popular culture, but now we're actually being able to put some numbers on it in a population-based study. It's really important for us to have this kind of information in every state in the country and at the federal level because, as we know, public policy debates about transgender people are happening. And we don't often have a lot of data to be able to back up the types of needs that the community has, and this is a great step in that direction. So this study is one that asks people to identify their current gender identity in a number of different ways, not just saying, are you transgender, but really asking for a number of different labels that young people in particular use, but they're not limited to young people. A lot of adults are using these terms as well, and this is sort of the cutting edge of science, but I think in many ways it's actually catching up to where the community has been. Discrimination and stigma have impacts on our health, and that can have long-term ramifications for these young people. So it really was confirming a lot that we do know about the community, and unfortunately we have a long way to go to make sure that the whole community is healthy and well. This is incredibly important when we think about all of the debates that we're having right now in places like North Carolina and Michigan and Texas and across the country. I think we're particularly concerned when we look at the way the federal government is doing its job now in things like tweeting out that transgender people shouldn't be allowed in the military, or the Department of Education rescinding guidance to schools to help them serve and respect their transgender students. I think we're fearful of seeing that step backwards, even further. And these kind of data are the things that can help us to demonstrate that there are needs for the community, that the community is not an invisible one, and that we need to have public policy that's responsive to those needs.